talk about talent as if it's a single gift, a skill, a spark. But what if talent is an equation we've never been able to solve? What if the x keeps changing? Please raise your hand if you've ever been called a natural. Okay. Now please raise your hand if you've ever been called talented. Oh. Now please raise your hand if you've ever felt uncomfortable by that label, maybe a little bit like an imposter. See, to me, that feeling is interesting, because when we talk about talent, it's usually something we see. The performance, the result, the moment someone does something that just feels extraordinary. But the word itself doesn't really explain anything. It doesn't explain the journey, doesn't explain how the person's even able to do what they do, and it definitely doesn't explain how two separate people from different backgrounds, experiences, perspective can come to that same conclusion. We just call it talent and move on. But this idea of simplifying things isn't really new. Historically, we didn't even call it talent. I actually think we use the word talent very casually nowadays. Historically, when someone saw something that just felt or seemed extraordinary, they called it supernatural. And that makes me think of this violinist, Niccolo Paganini, otherwise known as, or how I know him, the devil's violinist. Technique so exact, mastery so advanced that people truly believed he must have sold his soul to the devil. In fact, it took 5 years, according to Britannica, for his burial, because they truly believed his mastery could not be human. But the reality behind it is a bit more complex. He didn't just wake up one day and was able to play so well. No one does. The fact is, or the reality is, his father made him practice such a strict regimen, 15 hours every single day, get that perfect passage, that perfect rhythm, that perfect flow between measure 1, measure 2, to the point where he was denied food and water. And this obsession, yeah, it followed him through his adulthood. This is who he was. This is how he practiced. And people, instead of asking him, how did you reach to this level? Everything was reduced to a single myth: possession. And yeah, yes, he looks possessed, he sounds possessed, don't get me wrong. But hours and hours of countless effort, obsessing, all reduced to just that. He must have sold his soul to the devil. And you know what? When we look back, we don't actually know where his talent came from. Was it natural ability? Did he have an ear for it? Or was it that strict regimen? Or was it both? We can't go back in time and separate those things. All we know is this: a violinist whose mastery felt inhumane. And again, instead of people questioning things, they said, oh, clearly he must have sold his soul. This isn't real, right? So they replaced complexity with mystery. But again, technical mastery isn't the only kind of talent we know. I was actually talking to my mom, who's sitting in the lovely front row, about this talk specifically, and she used to play piano, not anymore. And she told me about these two pianists. First pianist comes in, technique perfect. The sound, the music, everything was perfect, but the music felt void, empty. Next pianist comes in, same piece, but something shifted in that room. The music felt alive. It had emotion, presence, movement. And my mom said something to me that stuck with me. Some people are simply born with a spark. And that made me realize something. The devil's violinist and this pianist both represent something we call talent. One built its reputation on technical mastery. The other one is building it on emotion and presence. Yet we both call them talented. Different perspectives, different ideas, different experiences. Going back to that same label. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to think about my own life. I grew up with an older sister. She's also sitting in the lovely front row. I know, they're both looking at me like, why are you talking to us? And we're only a year apart, so we're very close. And we grew up in the same conversations, the same environments, opportunities, yet our paths could not have been any more different. It's insane. She actually started playing the piano before I did. At the time, I was learning the violin very poorly. Never asked me to play the violin. That's not me. And when she was learning the piano, she struggled. She had trouble reading the sheet music. She had trouble, overall, she memorized the keys, which is great. She's great at piano. Don't get me wrong. Years later, like a copycat, I decided I wanted to learn piano too. Younger sister kind of thing. And when I started playing piano, something felt different. To me, I didn't have trouble reading the sheet music. It was a little easier. I didn't share her same struggles. But then she was building skills in completely different areas. She's super analytical. She can promote ideas, build relationships, and communicate with people in ways I still struggle with today. Same conversations, same opportunities, same environment, completely different outcomes. It's as if when we were younger, something pulled us apart in ways we didn't even understand at the time, that led us into different paths, that led us in rooms on our respective careers, in rooms that we're called talented, just in very different ways. History shows this pattern again and again. Let's take Mozart and Beethoven, for example. If you haven't looked at their manuscripts, I highly recommend it. If you look at Mozart's manuscripts, it's flawless. It's perfect. It's as if the music simply flowed out of him. On the other hand, we have Beethoven, completely different story. It's scribbled, it's scratched out, it's basically ineligible. Like, I can't read it. One looks effortless, the other looks relentless. Again, different backgrounds, different ways, different environments, different perspectives. Yet, we both call them talented. So then what is talent? Maybe talent isn't a single trait. Maybe it's obsession, it's luck, it's perspective, it's hard work, it's natural ability. And then there's that X, that spark, the it factor, the way culture decides what it values. And here's the thing, talent doesn't look the same for everyone. For some, natural ability might be the dominant factor. For others, it's hard work. And for others, it's emotion and presence. And when we look at people like Niccolò Paganini, or a pianist who can move a room with a single note, or Mozart and Beethoven, something becomes clear. Talent never looks the same twice. But let's imagine for a moment we've solved the equation. This is the path, this is the journey, this is how talent should come to be. At first, some of us might feel relieved. Talent comes with expectation. Expectation comes with burnout and all that fun stuff. I know. So, some of us might feel alleviated. But then, if talent is reduced or limited, we're only a few and select group of people would ever fit that category. And let's say centuries ago, maybe not centuries, but say Mozart's time, maybe he would have been the defining factor. Child prodigy, instant brilliance, a one true talent. What happens to Beethoven, Boccherini, Haydn? Their journeys were slower, much complicated. They weren't Mozart, they weren't child prodigies. And in a world where talent had already been defined, they would have never been recognized at all. But this idea doesn't work just in music. This is in business, in marketing. We already know that every strategy doesn't work for every company, every audience, every moment. And you need different perspectives. You need different experiences, people, to come up with that perfect strategy for that perfect audience, for that one company, for that one environment. And creativity works the same way. Talent isn't a story told over and over and over again for centuries. It needs growth. It needs reinvention. It needs different cultural backgrounds. It needs different perspectives, people. And when we're quietly limiting talent, we're ignoring the quiet builders that don't look extraordinary at first glance. So maybe the real power in talent isn't in defining it, but rather in questioning it. Because the moment we believe we solve the equation is the moment we stop seeing all the ways it can exist. Thank you.